You know that moment right after an argument starts, or right after someone says something that just completely shatters you? There's a type of person who just shuts down. They go completely silent, staring off into space, looking like they just stopped caring altogether. But not because they are cold, not because they are trying to manipulate the situation, and honestly, not because they are emotionally dead inside, but because their entire nervous system just pulled the emergency brake. Psychologists just figured out exactly what is happening inside the minds of people who go silent when they are hurt. And yeah, it changes everything you thought you knew about communication. If this is you, or if you love someone who does this, look, you need to hear this right now. You're not broken. You're not weird. You're not antisocial. And you're definitely not damaged. Society loves to tell you that if you don't immediately scream and cry and articulate your feelings perfectly in the heat of the moment, you are somehow toxic. But honestly, that is completely wrong. Today we're unpacking the actual psychology behind why your mind goes blank when your heart gets hurt. First up, we have to talk about what your body is actually doing when you lose your voice. You see, most people think that when you are quiet, you are just refusing to speak. They think you have all these words lined up in your head, and you are just stubbornly holding them hostage. But that is not what is happening to you at all. When your emotional pain or conflict exceeds your capacity to cope in that exact second, your body enters a profound state of freeze. I don't know if you've ever felt this, but it literally feels like a physical paralysis of your vocal cords. According to Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, a leading psychiatrist who studies how trauma affects the body, when your brain is overwhelmed by intense emotional distress, a specific part of your brain called Broca's area actually goes offline. Broca's area is the speech center of your brain. It is the part of you that turns your complex feelings into understandable words. When you feel attacked or deeply hurt, the blood flow to this area literally decreases. So, when you are sitting there in silence, it's not that you don't want to talk. It's that your brain has temporarily stripped you of the biological ability to form words. Think about it like a smartphone. If you open 20 heavy apps all at the exact same time, your phone doesn't just keep working perfectly. It freezes, the screen locks up, the buttons stop responding, and it just sits there, staring blankly back at you. Your brain is doing the exact same thing. You are processing so much internal pain, so much confusion, and so much sensory input that your cognitive processor just stalls out. You aren't giving someone the silent treatment. Your system is simply buffering under an impossible emotional load. But here's where it gets really wild. Your silence is heavily tied to the ghosts of your past. Your current reactions are rarely just about the current argument. Often, this freeze response was literally trained into you. If you grew up in a house where your tears were punished, or where raising your voice meant you lost your parents' affection, your brain learned a very specific survival rule. Your brain learned that expressing negative emotion equals danger. Or maybe it wasn't your childhood. Maybe you were in a toxic relationship where every single time you tried to explain your feelings, your words were twisted, manipulated, and used as ammunition against you. When you go through that kind of psychological warfare, your nervous system rewires itself. Dr. Stephen Porges explains this perfectly with his polyvagal theory. He describes this exact shutdown as a dorsal vagal state. It is a primal biological defense mechanism. When fighting back doesn't work, and when running away isn't an option, your body chooses the third path, playing dead. By going silent, your nervous system is trying to make you invisible to the threat. You are essentially walking through a minefield with an outdated map. Your brain still thinks that speaking up will trigger an explosion, so it forces you to stand completely still, holding your breath, just waiting for the danger to pass. Now, before you start thinking that this silence means your mind is empty, we need to clear something up. The people who look the most peaceful on the outside during an argument are usually fighting a massive, deafening war on the inside. Well, if you do this, you know exactly what I mean. While you are sitting there entirely mute, your brain is spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour. You are endlessly analyzing the conversation. You're asking yourself what you did wrong, trying to decode what the other person actually meant, and desperately trying to calculate if speaking up is going to make the situation worse. You are terrified of making the wrong move, and honestly, a lot of the time, your silence is a radical act of love and protection. Wait, what? Yeah, you heard me correctly. Many people who go silent do it to protect the relationship, not to destroy it. Renowned relationship researcher Dr. John Gottman calls this state diffuse physiological arousal, or DPA. When your heart rate shoots up above 100 beats per minute during a conflict, your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Some people recognize this flood, and they realize that if they open their mouths right now, they are going to say something incredibly destructive. They know that the anger inside them is boiling over, and if they let it out, it will burn the person they love. So, what do? They swallow it. They act like an electrical circuit breaker that violently flips itself off to prevent the entire house from burning down to the ground. You choose to absorb the discomfort of silence because you know it is safer than the alternative. You are essentially holding a live emotional grenade, and you are actively choosing to let it burn your own hands rather than throwing it at your partner. That isn't coldness. That is a desperate, messy attempt to protect the people you care about from your own emotional chaos. And this leads to a massive problem. When you are in this fragile, overwhelmed state, the worst possible thing someone can do is force you to speak. If you've ever had someone follow you from room to room, demanding an answer, yelling, "Just say something," you know how suffocating it is. The more they push, the more you retreat. Because when your nervous system is already overloaded, demands for immediate communication don't feel like an invitation to connect. They feel like an interrogation. They feel like a predator cornering you. Eventually, under that kind of intense pressure, you might just blurt out an apology you don't mean, or you might say something incredibly hurtful just to make the interrogation stop. You just want to escape the sensory overload. You aren't communicating your truth. You are just hitting the eject button to survive the moment. What you actually need, what your nervous system is desperately begging for, is the perception of safety. You need someone to look at you, recognize that you are flooding, and simply say, "Okay, I see you are overwhelmed right now. Take your time. I'm right here when you are ready." But here's the uncomfortable truth. While your silence might have started as a survival mechanism, and while your nervous system is absolutely valid for trying to protect you, the question isn't whether your silence is justified. The question is whether it is healthy for your future. There is a massive difference between a shield and a wall. A shield is something you use temporarily to protect yourself when the arrows are flying. It gives you a moment to catch your breath. That is self-soothing. That is taking a necessary time out to regulate your nervous system. But if you never put the shield down, if you just retreat into your castle, pull up the drawbridge, and leave your partner standing out in the cold forever, that shield becomes a wall. It becomes stonewalling, and stonewalling is deeply damaging to the people trying to love you. The healthy version of this behavior requires a bridge. It requires you to communicate your need for silence before you disappear into it. It means learning to push through the freeze just enough to say, "I am too overwhelmed to talk right now. I need some space, but I will come back to this tonight." That tiny bridge changes everything. It tells your partner that you aren't abandoning them. You are just taking a moment to put your emotional armor away so you can actually hold them properly. So, the next time someone asks you why you got so quiet, or the next time you feel that heavy freeze washing over your body, I want you to remember this. Your silence isn't a flaw in your character. It is a profoundly deep response from a nervous system that cares very deeply about keeping you safe. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself the space you need to thaw out. And when you are finally ready, let your words build a bridge back to the people who matter. If this hit home for you, please subscribe to the channel. We explore the hidden psychology behind everyday behaviors. And I would love to have you back here for the next video. Stay safe. Take a deep breath. And I will see you in the next one.